Hello, I am Mighty Blue Justice. I am a outfit leader and Outfit Wars player on Soltech, and I have been trying to document the weekly comings and goings of Soltech's Outfit Wars for this Alpha Season 3. I do try to stay away from the design elements discussion of Outfit Wars in this because it's a lot to talk about, and I'm just trying to focus on the match results for each of these weekly ones. We'll probably talk about the other stuff after it's all over. So this week we're going to be covering the results from round 4, which happened last weekend, and we're going to make some predictions for round 5, which is coming up this weekend. And after that, I'll have a short discussion on the ladder possibilities, the possible ladder movements for each outfit on the ladders, and that's that. So we'll get right into it with the week 4 matches. Bring those up. Okay, so week 4 we had match 1. Match 1 was Thunder Cougar Falconbirds versus Stimpack versus RWCN. Now this match was because of the RWCN disqualification last week. RWCN weren't able to participate in this match, so it was just a 1v1 with Stim and TCFB. TCFB were generally expected to come second in this round, but what actually happened was Stim came up with a great strategy. I say a great strategy. They decided to try getting all of their team together to try to build like a large base out the front of the VS Warp Gate, and what happened there was the TCFB guys they just flew around. So the ultimate thing is that they really committed to building a big base at the beginning of it, trying to like almost warp gate them. But TCFB just went around and capped all the territories, and then they capped forward and forward like absolute mad lads until they were at the NC warp gate. So there was a very brief period of time where the VS were holding all 9 relics. So after that, Stim decided they should refocus, and they abandoned that strategy and started capturing their relics back, as you would expect. But because of the lead that TCFB had accrued during that process, it was actually too much for them to catch back up. So TCFB were able to sort of just coast over the edge there. The NC guys, though, they did make a very strong recapture for a lot of the relics, and I'm sure if the match had gone on any longer, Stimpack would have won it. But you know, you can't play for the too long game if your game doesn't go long enough. So they came second. So that was TCFB came first and earns 3 points in the ladder, and Stim came second and earned 1 point. RWCN didn't turn up, and so they earned 0 points because they were disqualified. All right, so we move on to match 2. Match 2 was Last Ravens RVNX versus Black Sun Empire versus Doggy Commandos, or Doge. Now this match, in the lead up to it, it looked like it should have basically been a pretty easy gimme for the Ravens. Ravens were the only ones who were really bringing a full team. Black Sun Empire sort of bringing about sort of half squad, like half strength team, about 2 squads. And Doggy Commandos has sort of been bringing about maybe like a squad and a half. Although the Doge guys have usually been punching very far above their weight numbers wise for their attendance in Outfit Wars. So this match was quite a good watch. The initial sort of lead went to Doge. It was almost like the first couple of minutes, it was a repeat of Doge's last week match where the VS and the TR just ignored each other and fought along their lane. Doge was able to pretty much capture the rest of the relics, and they ended up with 4 relics for the first little part of the match. And the scores actually stayed pretty even for the most part, up until about the 300-400 point where the Ravens and Black Sun had basically recaptured most of the relics, and Doge started to fall behind. But the rest of the match was very close between Ravens and Black Sun Empire the entire time, and it was pretty wild. There was some big highlights there as well, mostly around like Relic A. There was quite a lot of fighting around Relic A between Doge and RVNX. I want to give extra props to our mad lad Dogue Reserve 22, who ran through a pack of Ravens to kill their router that was filling their defenses at Relic A. So Dogue were able to capture the Relic off of the back of that play, which is very strong. The Raven guys managed to have a lot of air superiority throughout the match. They had better pilots, and they also had a Colossus kicking around who was making some real good anti-air shots as they roamed around the place. So they did a very strong sort of airspace control there, which basically resulted in a lot of the VS in the NC coming down with a serious case of getting bansheed pretty much whenever they poked their heads outside. In addition to that, the match had quite a lot of last-minute steals and attempted steals via either Galaxies or Steel Raindrops. And there were some really good backcaps as well. There was one around the 620 score mark. Ravens made a great big push to take Relic D off of Black Sun Empire. And by the time they got to the point, Black Sun had actually managed not one but two backcaps at Relics Ibri and Etna. So it was a really good play by the Black Sun guys. Unfortunately, it didn't succeed. They didn't capture the relics, but it did sort of stall the TR attack on Relic D at that point, which is really strong. So ultimately, Ravens were eventually able to pull off the win that they were chasing, and the match finished with Ravens first, Black Sun close behind second, and Doe kind of trailing off. But it was a pretty good fight from all teams, and it was quite a good watch. So I'd recommend catching that one if you want to have a look at that. All right, we move on to match 3. Match 3 this week was AMXE versus Catcher versus BMLX. So BMLX was the other disqualified team. So they weren't able to turn up. The NC group was empty. Catcher didn't really leave the warp gate, I think. They just kind of sat there and did nothing. So AMXE was able to more or less cap all 9 relics and finish the match really quickly. For a total victory there wasn't much to see. Match 4, we'll move on. So match 4 was Overthreat versus NCJP versus Celestial Being FHRE. Overthreat once again get an easy win versus two teams that are bringing like smallish numbers. They've basically been crawling their way back up from the bottom of the ladder since they came last in their first fight on round 1. It's good that they've basically started to get their way back up there. NCJP, they actually had a whole bit of an armor group wandering around there. They had 3 Colossus grooving around, some Lightning, some Sunderers, and they just drove around shooting stuff. Overthreat basically sat in the warp gate for the first little part of the map, just doing lots of fireworks and celebration-y sort of stuff, and then after that they just left and crushed the rest of the match and won. So, you know, we expected that, and that's what happened. And then we move to match 5. So match 5. This match, none of the outfits fought each other. They pretty much just gathered up in the middle and started spelling out words with Sunderers. So I don't know if that counts as match fixing or not, according to their code of conduct thing that they posted a few weeks ago. But that match is probably going to get some attention from the devs if they're going to try and be consistent with anything. So HHVS did win that match, but that's only because they just captured the first 2 relics and the other 2 teams didn't even try to capture any relics. So who knows what's going on with that match. So we move on to next week's matches. Next week's matches. We have match 1 is, once I change the thing, aha, magic. All right, so next week there's only 4 matches and they're all on Friday. So the matches are as follows. Match 1 is Stimpack versus RVNX versus Thunderkuka Falconbirds. Now this one's actually got a bit of historical significance because most of the players in all of these teams played last year during the Soltech's Silver League for round 2 of the Outfit Wars beta. So yeah, so that's going to be pretty exciting. It's like a little bit of a grudge match. It's not obviously not the same people not exactly the same people in each outfit, but it's a little bit of a history with a lot of the players playing from last year. So that one's actually going to be pretty exciting to watch. Looking forward to seeing how that one goes. we move on to match 2, which is Doge versus Overthreat versus AMXE. So this match, like a lot of matches that Doge are involved in, this one's going to be interesting to watch, just to see what happens, basically. So this is Overthreat's first real set of opponents since the playoffs began. So this is going to be quite interesting to see how they sort of turn out. It's Overthreat versus AMXE, and Doge are going to be the wild card like they always are. I'm sure they will bring the power of friendship and have a great time, win or lose, more or less. So we have match 3. Match 3 is THOC, Catcher, and HHVS. So if I were to base this just on attendance numbers, this match looks like Catcher should be able to take it pretty easily, because they're the one that's, of the 3 teams, they're the one that's been bringing an entire team each week to Outfit Wars. If HH turns up with a full team, it could be an interesting fight. THOC hasn't really been bringing people to teams. They're kind of like a half-team ghost entry kind of thing. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes. We move down to match 4, which is the NCJP, New Conglomerate Japan Community, versus SC Boy 25 versus Black Sun Empire. So all of these teams have been partial showings during the Outfit Wars. Of all of them, Black Sun Empire have been slightly more consistent in terms of how many that they are able to bring. And I think they've got a decent shot at winning the match based on historical attendance. But any one of these outfits could recruit more people in the week leading up to it. So this one could kind of go anyway. That's match 4, basically. So we'll move on to the ladder discussion for this week. So I'll go over each of the ladders with respect to their empire, and we'll see how that one goes. So this week on the VS, the VS ladder on Soltech is kind of the most competitive one. TCFB and AMXE are both vying for gold. If TCFB want to definitely secure it, they need to win their match, which is going to be a big ask versus Stim and RVNX. If AMXE win their match, and if TCFB comes second, then AMXE should move up to gold if it's just based off of win-loss record versus points. And interestingly enough, on the bottom end of it as well, if HH wins their match, and if AMXE comes second, then HH will actually move up to silver. Unlikely. I don't think that's a likely occurrence. And then unfortunately, Black Sun Empire have got a really hard fight to stay in the running, based just on points. Even if Black Sun win, they're still hoping that HH comes second or last, so that they can stay in it. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how that one shakes out for the VS this weekend. On the TR, the ladder has pretty much just come down to Last Ravens and Overthreat competing for gold or silver. Whichever team wins their match is going to gold next week. If either of those teams win. Otherwise, if they both get second, it'll be as it is. Catcher has got to win their match if they want to get a hope of getting to second place, and SC Boy is pretty much out of the competition just based on the victory points that they've accrued so far. If SC Boy win, they can tie with Catcher, but because Catcher scored 0 points in their last match, SC Boy is more likely to win the tiebreaker based on the record. So that one could be really interesting. But, you know, it means that SC Boy has to win their match, which I think not necessarily entirely likely. So we move on to the NC ladder. NC ladder is pretty much rusted in at this point. So Stim are mathematically guaranteed to be in gold no matter what happens on the NC ladder. They could lose, Doge could win, it would still be the same. So Doge are most likely to come second in the ladder to go to silver, unless THOC or NCJP somehow win their matches. But I think that's pretty unlikely considering the opponents that those two teams are matched against. So NC ladder looks like it's pretty much rusted in. The TR one is a bit of movement between first and second place, and the VS one is actually pretty close. It could go a number of different ways, depending on what happens. So that's this week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for your time. Bye.